Test, test, test. Test, test.
Just get me some, a little bit more.
Test, test.
Can you test your,
Test, test, test.
give me a little, keep doing it.
Test, test, test.
Keep going.
Keep going. Going, going, going.
Keep going.
Keep going. One of these days, should I start singing a song?
Yep.
Still going. Is that better?
Yep.
All right.
What would you sing us?
I don't really know.
I don't think we want to hear it.
I'd sing far, far away.
I got tested. They said I have a bad attitude.
Optical rectilitis. Shitty outlook. Don't get up, it's only me, keep seats. Okay?
Test, test.
The Honorable Roy Carney has entered the building. And Stephanie.
Yeah, yeah, maybe we're standing for Stephanie and not for her. Restore pages, I don't need to restore those pages. Robin is so intrigued about what's going on with the park. She's gonna come in community development and her facade program.
You asked her.
She volunteered. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you sure?
Yeah. It's sunny outside. It's sunny outside, you know.
What was that? Oh, well, maybe just text him and meet me at the Shooters, right?
Was Ned Drillette still on Central Standard Time? Hey, Jerry.
Huh? Actually, and I have that shirt, or the sweatshirt too.
Was Ned Drillette still on Central Standard Time when he shows up at 12:45? This was.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
You walked in, was the meeting started already? So it's clear maybe he thought it was 11 before he went up.
I know, I noticed that when they changed that one, I don't know for the,
I remember what it was. Oh, was that gonna run again? Was that gonna run again?
Benny Johnson got the wealthy part.
No, he's not on air.
When I die, probably.
parks.
That's my retirement plan is dead.
Because that's where
I'm
Tom,
very clear about that.
Well, I will tell you this, I won't ever do that.
I just thought it was funny because when we walked in.
Rough.
He started already?
No, Two weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks is fine. Well, you know. Somebody did IT, but you better send out 10K of followers, and then take fear of saying that.
Let me see the forms that I created.
Do we change that one?
Yes.
You know how? It's the one that's from China, and we have no idea how.
Just keep hitting buttons.
It's basically what I'm doing. I think at this day and age, they should figure out an intuitive way to change.
What? What was that?
Time set, clock set,
That girl brain working too hard.
press and hold.
Thank you, Ann.
Whoa!
Oh, 24 degrees, there you go. You did it.
Yay!
Maybe.
Something.
Yeah. Good job.
Yes.
Good job.
Well, there are different times.
But it's 5:26 on our.
We'll keep that one.
I don't know how to fix that one.
Oh, you don't?
Only Justin?
does.
but as long as this one's faster, you start.
Mr. Chairman, can you turn on your mic, please?
Hey, Jerry. Turn your mic off.
That's how I'm not loud enough? Okay. The purpose of this meeting is to hear information from staff, applicants, and citizens, and then make a recommendation to the City Council. For each agenda item, the staff will first present the item. The committee and elected officials will have a chance to ask questions, and then the public will have an opportunity to make a statement. Any action taken tonight in this committee meeting will be advisory only and appear as a recommendation at the City Council, at the next City Council meeting, in which the entire City Council will have an opportunity to vote on the matter. We want to hear what everyone has to say, but we ask that the rules of procedure are followed. Anyone who wishes to speak must step up to the microphone up here. You will have up to 5 minutes to make your statement. Please direct your comments to the committee on the dais and not to individual members of the committee, staff, or anyone else in attendance. Public comment is an opportunity to hear from you. The intent is not back and forth questions and answers. Okay, so we can get going. First item is a roll call.
Yep. Chair Albrecht.
Yep.
Vice Chair Carney.
Here.
Monroe. Mylart.
Here.
Hudson. And Phony.
Here.
Sir, we have a quorum.
Okay. The next item is approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was January 8th, 2024.
Make a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. On to the next. These are the items that require city council action. Go ahead, Andrew, you're up.
Okay. So this first one is fairly involved, so I'm going to do my best to try and break it down and go through this this contract for Focal Point to do some of our local landscaping at non-park sites. So first off, I kind of just want to start with a breakdown of how we got here. So in 2019, our horticulturalist, Sarah Burton, took on the responsibilities of the Vine Street Market. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had tremendous growth, as most of you know. We've went from 25 vendors to well over 100 vendors. We've done food trucks, we've done music performances, and our pop club, which is the Power of Produce. We've added so many things to the market that the demands on Sarah's time have increased over and over again. So due to that, due to all the market growth, we've had to do some prioritization of Sarah's time because the market has now become a full-time job. In 2023, last year, summer of last year, we added some responsibilities to Sarah's plate to do more events from the downtown district. What she does for them is she does the calendar for them. She keeps them organized. She does all the SEPA permits. She makes sure that all the events have all of the boxes checked as far as city requirements. So, and then she helps in the planning of some of those events, not all of them. It's by and large done by the downtown district, but she does, behind the scenes person, she does do quite a bit for them. The district does reimburse us for that, for some of Sarah's time to the tune of $6,000 a year. And again, she's got several different areas of responsibilities to take on for that. This $6,000 that the chamber reimburses us is not necessarily for all of the events Sarah does downtown. It is an economic driver, so we do bear the brunt of some of Sarah's time for those events. She's bringing in thousands of people of downtown, helping out the businesses. And so even though maybe the chamber hasn't, or I mean, sorry, the downtown district hasn't kicked in the full 23% of time that you might have seen for Sarah over there, there are other factors that we feel are benefit to the city, so we do account for some of that. Okay, and then the horticultural issues that we experienced last year due to a lack of time for Sarah to manage this program. Keep in mind, Sarah has a little over an hour a day to maintain the current level of horticulture we have in town, and that's not enough when you consider that the parks alone has over 400 acres. Last year, the landscape became overgrown and weeded. We weren't able to manage the crews in a timely manner to get to the sites, maintain them, weed them, and then move on to the next site. So we would show up constantly to overgrown sites, or we couldn't get to a site in a timely manner, and it would be 2, 3, 4 weeks before we could get some sites maintained. And then we were not able to keep up normal expectations of plantings and plantings for things like the raised beds at the sports park, a huge tourist attraction for us, and those beds went unplanted last fall. So if you went to the sports park last fall, you either saw plants or left over from the summer or just straight up mulched planters, just because we didn't have time to manage that, manage those, plan for them, purchase the plants for them, get the staff ready to go. We just lacked time, so we prioritized other high priority sites, City Hall being one of them. And then we were not able to find, recruit, and train our employees and supervise them, meaning we were shorthanded almost all season long. We really need 10 employees to maintain our level of horticulture. Last year we had only about 5, and not due to a lack of trying. We just couldn't find the people to do this sort of work. We require people to work basically seasonally, so March through November, 40 hours a week. and we were not able to find people to do the work. So we were shorthanded most of the year, and then of the 5 people that we did have last year, 2 of them decided not to come back or reassign to other departments. So to start the year, we only had 3 people that committed to coming back. And again, when we need 10, that just wasn't enough to do the work. So the process, so what we decided, we did an analysis of the situation, and we internally looked at, should we hire a full-time horticulturalist and replace Sarah and make her more designated to downtown, or should we contract out the service and do Sarah maintain the landscape beds within the parks, and then contract out the cities, some other city sites with Sarah overseeing the contract. The advantage of that was she can only maintain a contract as maintaining employees. It's a little more efficient for her, and then it would allow her to free up time to do other responsibilities. So again, so we looked for several different options, and we did a mini RFQ. We didn't have enough time to spend 3 to 4 to 5 weeks to do a full RFQ. So what we did is we reached out to local contractors we knew about, people we worked with, and people we just knew of, invited them to submit a proposal. So we got 2 proposals back from 2 excellent companies. Both of them could have performed the work and were well qualified to do the work. And then ultimately we chose this one based on the price from one contractor over the other was more affordable. So we did select Focal Point as our preferred vendor to perform the horticulture work this year. And then moving forward, we've established a priority list of sites. So the contractor will maintain our high-profile sites that will get annual plantings, such as in years past. The off-the-beaten sites will just have their beds maintained with pre-emergent and those types of things. So we will not do those annual plantings in every single site. It's based on site and importance of that site. And then over the next year, what we're going to do is plan to convert those sites from more of an annual plantings to more perennials. So the sites moving forward will get perennials, native plants, shrubs, bushes, those types of things. So in years moving forward, we will not have to spend so much time with watering and weeding. We'll just have more of a native type of planting beds. So I went through it in a nutshell. That's kind of fast, but that's how we broke down some of this, some of the solutions that we have to not only allow Sarah more time to do the downtown work, but also still maintain our level of horticultural responsibility. So, any questions?
So how much, will Sarah have anything to do with the horticultural part?
Yeah, so she'll still do all the parks, so sports parks, Tolman, all of the parks she'll maintain with her crew of.
Contractors providing the labor.
And the contract, we've been able to get about 4 people to do the parks, 4 or 5 people that we have maintaining the parks now. So the parks are maintained. It's the other off-park sites that will be maintained through Focal Point.
So this contractors plus up that group?
Yes. Yeah, they will do here, fire station, public safety, some Shiloh sites, roundabouts, those types of sites.
Anybody else have questions?
On the group 6, I take it that's the roundabouts. What about the State Street roundabout? I don't see it on here.
The State Street roundabout, that was maintained by the Garden Club in years past. They've elected not to do it this year. So since it was one side, we're just going to send our whole crew out there to do that and maintain it like a park. But in future years, we'll add that to the contract. That was a last-minute add.
Anybody else? Council? Jim?
One question, relative to the cost of the contract, relative to what it would cost us to hire the part-time employees?
Yeah, so to hire, I'm sorry, I don't have that specific. I can probably get it to you. I don't have that analysis to hire 5 to 6 more people to do it. But I think the problem was we couldn't find those people to do it. So if they're readily available, we might be in a different situation, but they're not. We can't find people to do that work.
Curious about differential.
It would be a lot when you consider $18 an hour times 40 weeks, times 5 people, times 6-8 months. So it would probably equal up to, if not more than that contract.
Anybody else? Public? Okay, hear a motion to pass it up?
Make a motion.
Okay, we need a roll call.
Second.
Had a second.
You gotta get
Chair Albrecht,
Yeah,
Vice Chair Carney,
Yes.
Mr. Mylart,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson, Ms. Foney.
Yes.
Motion carries. Will be sent on to council. Thank you.
okay, item 3.1, budget presentation. You're
Yep.
up again.
This is our annual budget that obviously we do every year. And this is very similar to years past as far as our operation goes. And so I've broken down to key categories so you can see, and this particular side is our revenue. And just so everyone kind of understands how our department is funded, 9% of our revenue comes from concession sales, that's sports park and pool. Utility tax is for $1.4 million. Sales tax at, again, 1.4, a little over 1.45 million. We can take about $7,000 in donations every year from our trees or different donations we get. Rentals at sports park field rentals, that is pavilion rentals, building rentals, about $750,000 in revenue from rentals. Program revenue, this is our summer camp, our baseball program, softball, dance, all of our programming is a little over $1 million. And then other is just random, around $503,000. So those are our big ticket revenue sources for us. Expenses, let's see here. Operations is our biggest expense. This is everything from utility bills to just everything we do for operations is $1.6 million. Equipment non-cap is things we need to buy every year, or replacement shelving, replacement very small equipment like weed eaters and stuff. New liner, field liner for the sports park, just different type of equipment that we have to get every year. Utilities, $208,000. Part-time, again, as in years past, this is one of our biggest categories, and every year that minimum wage goes up $1, this goes up more. This is a department, we have a department that's heavily reliant on seasonal staff. You know, obviously, we hire over 250 seasonal staff, and so every time that dollar kicks up, it's a real hit to our budget. So that's 22%. And then programming expenses, this is just to buy the t-shirts for the kids for sports or to buy snacks for our summer camp. That's $329,000. Equipment, this is our large equipment that we'll talk about in the next slide, so I'll hold that one for a little bit. Transfer to IT, this is just needs to take care of our IT needs as far as our computers, phones, those types of things. Full-time salary is a little over $1 million. That's to take care of 17 full-time staff. And then our dental vision is $279,000. And then we have one vehicle in the budget this year for $60,000. And then we're putting away about $200,000 in our capital reserve. This is a little bit lower than years past, but over the next 2 years, we're going to be spending a lot of that capital reserve to do things with the new facility, buying things we might need. So we'll take a little bit of a dip in putting money into our capital reserves, but we'll be back up to our normal amount after this year. Large spend, these are the big ticket items that we're going to get this year. A replacement mower for the cemetery at $10,000. We're going to put a new F-250. Again, we used to be able to get these off the state bid, but they have not been available for at least 3 years now, if not more. So we've had to up that number a little bit to try and purchase a truck off of some other means. We'll have to bid it out in some way. So that's $60,000. A new Toro 4000 mower. We'll share this with other departments. So that's a total of $67,000. Another small Toro 6000 for, which is a replacement. We had one for the cemetery, and we'll buy one for some of the other parks. A dingo, short of the mowers, the dingo is our most used piece of equipment. We have one, and the guys are on it every day, and they're fighting over it. So we really need a second dingo to help us out. And if you don't know what a dingo is, it's like a mini excavator that we can pick up anything we want. It's an incredible piece of equipment that the guys can't say enough nice things about. Lights for soccer field 9 and 10. Now this one is grant dependent, so we will only do this if we get a tourism grant that we've applied for. We should know about that tourism grant any day now. If we don't get that grant, we won't purchase these lights, but I think the grant was for around $250,000 to $225,000, so it's roughly half of the cost of the lights. So again, this is only if we get that grant. And then more directional signs for the sports park. If you remember, we have some in this year's budget, and then we'll round out the signage package next year with an additional $30,000 to get some more signage out of the park. The cemetery, again, nothing new with the cemetery here. It's very similar to years past. We have that mower on there that you've seen. Some different seasonal staff on there to the tune of about $256,000 for cemetery. So, any questions on the budget?
That truck that you're,
In your budget, is it 225 for the lights, or is it?
It's a great question. It's the grant will be half of the lights, so it's roughly $225,000. I think is for the
That's what's in
grant.
your budget?
We have to budget for the entire amount of the lights, but we'll receive a grant. So and essentially the
If you
lights
don't receive the grant, then what do you do with the
it's transferred from reserve, so we will not transfer from reserves.
the
else?
vehicle you're replacing, what about the old vehicle? What are you doing with that?
We're a little bit short on trucks, so we would probably just run it until the wheels come off or it gets too expensive to maintain.
Okay.
Anybody else? Council? Jim?
One of the things I noted is that you had 20,000 in medical insurance. How many employees does that cover?
20,000 or in which budget? Or 279,000? We have one full-time employee out at the sports park, so that would cover his insurance. Yes, insurance is very expensive.
Anybody else? Public? Vern?
Vern Miller, Ward 3. I just want to check with you on the cemetery and that. So when is the cover over Jesus going in? Is that going to be after you buy all 8 of those crypt things that you're going to, for cremation bodies, is that correct?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have 8 columbariums, I think, planned out there. We have 2. So once all of them are purchased, we'll put the covering over it. So it won't be for another 10 to 15 years.
Okay, 10, 15 years. So you're just going to buy them, the so-called columbariums, or you're going to buy them as needed then, right?
Yeah, when
So
the
you
ones,
fill those 2 up, then you may go buy 2 or 1 more that fill the spots until you get the 8 spots filled up?
yes.
Okay, just thank you much.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. 3.2.
3.2, okay, the community park project, just to kind of give you an update. As a recap, in January where I left you, the bids were, bid packages were going to be released. We had gone through and purchased some electrical equipment that we needed as far as getting it on order since the lead times are so long, so we're still in the process of that. And a reminder, we're getting 3 quotes for that, but it'll be well under the $50,000. In January, we received our comments back from the IDPH. They gave us 29 separate comments, issues that they wanted to see us either change, fix, or get clarification on. So we are in the process of working through those 29 items. And then once we are finished with that, we will send the comments back to IDPH for final approval, hopefully. There's a strong possibility we might have to go through a third round, but so far, of those 29 different items called for, we feel like they're manageable, and it's just about clarifying what they're looking for. And then in March, last Wednesday, we opened bids for the community park project. Those bids are being reviewed right now, and those contractors who are the low bidders are all being interviewed just to verify that their bids do match up with the specs. And so we're just doing our due diligence on those. So we'll do that between now, last week, and the 20th. We'll set up individual meetings with all those guys. Our construction manager will. And then March 25th, so a couple weeks from today, we'll have a special Parks and Environment meeting. So outside the norm, and what we'll do is we'll approve those contracts via the Parks and Environment Committee and then send them to council. So you'll be able to see those on that March 25th special meeting. I don't know the time yet. If any of the other meetings that evening are canceled, then we'll slide into that slot. If there are no other meetings canceled, then we'll occupy that 6:30, 7 o'clock time slot to review those. It shouldn't be a very long meeting unless there's a lot of questions, but I just want to make sure you knew. And then the following Monday, April 1st, you'll approve those contracts, and then we'll award the notice to proceed to the contractors. Okay, and then the KCC building is still under development, so we have not put that out for bid yet, but that should go to bid in April, and you'll approve those late April for early May. Okay, any questions on the community park project?
Not specifically on this one, but what I asked for a while back was, here's the projects, you can list them individually, here's the estimated cost, and here's what the contract cost is. So we can kind of keep track, at least maybe I can keep track of what this whole park project is going to end up costing us. It's somewhere north of 20 million. We never approved it as a project, one lump sum. We saw a piece of it here, a piece of it there, and a piece of it there over a period of time. So I was wondering if maybe for the next one of these, you could see a list of here's the proposed projects, here's what we think it's going to cost, and then you can just add to it when the contract comes in.
Yep, we should have a pretty clear picture by that 20th meeting. We'll have the final price on the pool, and then based on the current bids, we'll be able to use a lot of that information we gained from the bids to estimate what the building will be, and I'll have it all spelled out in the next meeting.
Is that a yes, you can do one of these charts, Sid?
Yeah, like I said, I'll have half of it because I'll have all the pools all worked out, and so and I should get the cost estimate for the pool gym any day now.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? Council? Ross, do you have something? Oh, okay. Public?
Mary Jean Hutchison, Ward 2. I'm a little confused, so you may need to get me up to date here. How can you go to bid when you don't have IDNR's response for the 26 or 29 items on the pool?
Andrew?
So because of the timing, we did feel like we could go out to bid and get those bids, and then the changes would be issued through a change order.
And it's a budget issue. It's a budget adjustment then.
Potentially, or it could be a budget reduction, but yeah.
Unlikely, but okay. And in this bid process that you guys are getting ready to do, the pool is just the pool in the building, not the pool building, amphitheater. It's just the pool.
The pool, the buildings, and the amphitheater.
And the amphitheater. It was my understanding that the amphitheater was not approved yet. I mean, has the neighborhood been contacted? Are they aware of this? It's a relatively small area. This is not historically a place that you would put an amphitheater for concerts and those types of things. When you have houses, how many feet away? No, we're not worried about that? Neighborhood, Alderman? I would think that would be a factor, that you should be walking that neighborhood and talking to those residents before you put something significantly out to bid in a small community park. You know, historically, if you look at where these amphitheaters are constructed, it's not in a place like that. And then on the other side of things, I heard a lot of excuses in the beginning about this and that and whatever. We won't go there, but where are we at on the pickleball courts?
So the pickleball courts are, the civil engineering is being completed right now. We'll go out to bid here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'll issue bids, and they'll be back in mid-April for completion or start date somewhere after April, mid-April.
Okay, so this is a project that's been on the slate for a year and a half, and it's kept getting bumped. Now we're at the end of a budget season in '24, and now it's getting pushed off till '25 and all these other projects, and these are big demand items and constantly being used. And then you're going to be doing this construction project, you know, this should have been bid out months ago, in the middle of their season, which isn't the best project management, but, you know, just a thought. I mean, if you want the pickleball people in here, we can probably get them in here if you need to know their thoughts on it, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. That and absolutely the amphitheater and the cost change off of dealing, you know, with the pool project could be significant before you go to bid. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ron?
Ron Zelms, Ward 6. Just when I thought I had it, now I don't. The bid that just came in, or you're just opening now, is the pool project. And then I heard you say it's also the amphitheater. Okay, now I'm confused because the sheet that you put out, I think it was December, that listed all these, what you had asked for. Talks about the pool project, and it says includes the following: park offices, party room, locker rooms, pump house, and storage. And then under that's pool and slide. Then under the community park enhancement project, that's supposed to include the new Katy Caven Center, stage and amphitheater, event gathering space, parking lot. So I'm really confused now. I guess it looked to me like you had the amphitheater under a separate project, and now you're saying it's under the pool. So I'm kind of like with you. I thought I had it figured out, but I guess I don't, as to what this most current bid is coming in for, and then what the next bid will be for.
Anybody else?
Vernal Air Ward 3, here we go. Okay. I'm trying to figure out what you're doing here, and you, on March the 6th, you had the bids come in and you opened them up to bid. You opened the sealed bids. There were sealed bids to use? Okay, why wasn't the public able to sit in on that?
The public was more than welcome to sit on it. It was publicly announced.
Was it offered to the public at that time? I never seen anything on it that said you were gonna have it that we could come in and sit, because like when the projects went on for improvement of the presidential streets, I was able to sit in at those meetings and hear when they opened the bids up, told us what the numbers were and everything else. We knew right then and there who had high, who had low, or whatever was indifferent. So is this a secret who these bidders are? Yes. Is that, silence is acceptance. I understand that now, right? Silence is accepted.
Again, this is
Understand-
public comments,
Huh?
this is public comments, not public discussion. So make your comment.
Yeah.
My comment is, we don't know what the bids are. Okay, there we go on that point. You know, I referred to these sheets last Monday in regards to the monies that you've gotten out there. I'm been a little high on my estimates, so I'm backing it off. I'm gonna let you know how much you're actually gonna be spending on your complex and all the stuff you're doing. Right now, I've got a total estimate about $26,542,452 is my estimate for what you're trying to do. Now, this comes on tails of the $8 million that you posted for last year. Comes on the monies of $9,948 million for the community park. On the pool project, $9,950,000. If I add those two numbers together, I get $19,898,000. Then, if I add the other $8 million that you had from last year, it comes up to $27,890,000. Now, I subtracted the amounts of money, because I'm going to hear about this. Oh, we have the other things on here for the la-da-da and for the sports park and for the community park trail and for all accessibility playground. That's another story too. I think you need to put some benches around there so those people can sit down and at least enjoy their kids playing. That's a side thought for something else. Anyway, if I subtract those numbers out, I come up with $26,500,000, just round it, $26,500,000, okay? Then you've got here. This is good. This is where you hit. This is where you hide the other money at. I mean, it's already on the warrants. I can warrant number 528, 529, 530 for FGS Architectural. That money is in there for them that they've already spent. You haven't stuck a shovel in the ground yet. $287,459.95. So, just a note added on to your original. So I'm just saying, I mean, I was wrong on my estimate. I said you're going to spend $25 million. Well, right now you're 26.5 over, and waiting to see how close we are when we see who's bidding this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Item 3.3.
Just a couple of things on some of the comments, if you will, Chairman. One, the amphitheater. Just keep in mind that perhaps we should label it something besides an amphitheater. This is not a colossal event space where we're going to have rock concerts. Think of small community theaters and some Thursday night music in the park, which we've done in years past. Many people have told me how they grew up coming to the park on Thursday nights and listening to music. So this is not a rock concert venue, so perhaps we should just call it a small stage in Community Park. And then two, a couple of things, the bids were put out there. Our architects and our construction manager, who are, some of the best in the business, felt like this was, they're comfortable doing this. We did receive a lot of the reports back from IDPH. We did issue a number of addendums, but when we saw the comments from IDPH, we really felt like many of the items they were talking about were going to be cost neutral anyway. So there was no concern about going over budget with any of the comments from IDPH. So again, if anything, there's some cost reductions since cost reductions based on what they called for and what we had to do. And then 3, you know, there's a lot of numbers being thrown out here. My office is open. I highly suggest that these, anybody who has questions about these, stop by the office and we'll go through them because there's some widely inaccurate numbers. Not even sure how we got to $27 million, but I'm happy to sit down with anybody and go through these numbers and just fact check them and go through everything so it's all in line and everyone feels comfortable with what we're doing. Look, staff reports is just our typical staff reports that we do every month. We didn't meet last month, so you'll get a couple of staff reports from the superintendents on what's going on. So again, just like anything, it's a good read.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on those? Okay, any additional public comments?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
go ahead.
Okay, first off, somebody said that the neighbors that live around this park need to be told about this. They are told about this. I'm an alderman in Ward 3, and I do contact people that live in that area. And as far as where this amphitheater is going, it is farther away from the public than where it was before. When the people before Andrew had it, it was closer to the neighbors. So I think this is a good setup, and I don't like it when somebody says that we don't contact the public about what's going on.
Anybody else? You have a comment, another comment? Oh, we're not discussing. We're not discussing. Would you have a comment to make?
Yeah, the comment in regards to what was already spoken. How's that?
Okay.
The thought about the people in the neighborhood being aware of what's happening. I digress back to where I live at, and less than a block away from me, several years ago, a piece of property sat there, and I got a letter from the city telling me that, hey, this developer wants to come in and put 2 homes in this area here. Are you all right with it? And I had to sign off on that thing and mail it back. Well, why isn't the city sending letters to the people in the neighborhood there, letting them know that, hey, we're doing this in the park, and do you consider it needs to be a letter sent to them? Just a thought.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention there was a question about the bid opening. The bid opening last Wednesday was a public bid opening. The room was full of contractors as the sealed bids were being opened, and the city clerk read them out and at the dais as that was going on. And so that was an open public meeting, and everybody was able to take down the numbers as the city clerk read them.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
Lawsuit. It's getting ready to get you guys.
Ah,
There you go. There it is.
yeah. I got to show you something.
It's gonna be a big one.
I got to show you something.
I don't know they have not sent letters out to those people. Friends that live over there.
Did you see my letters?
No. And nobody, and maybe he's talked to a couple of people that they just walk when they talk to people, they don't know what's wrong. And some of them don't care.
Oh, well. Oh, well. I can't find it. It's a picture of Sammy clearing 9 feet with a pole vault. as a sophomore. So she's doing good. She'd be a great swimmer. Got feet about that long. No, just she spent her. They saw her when she was in the 7th grade running track for grade school, and the coach took her aside and said, "Have you ever thought about pole vault? Because she's tall." And she was working out for the last 2 years with the high school track people. She,
Where does she live? Where does she live?
Honolulu. Just, I know they're not trying to sneak anything.
It's in your
These aren't very loud. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, I'm going to call the community development meeting to order. If I could, roll call, please.
Todd Roach.
Here.
Jim Campbell.
Here.
Jerry Albrecht.
Here.
Tom Vorse.
Here.
Nathan Parchman.
Here.
Stephanie Small here.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum, sir.
All right, thank you. First up is our minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, minutes approved. All right, and next up, 2.1 Augusta Green, second edition, final plot.
Yeah, so we have a big agenda, but hopefully we can move through them pretty quickly. There's not too much on it. For the first agenda item, it is Augusta Green, second edition. This is the area of the Augusta Green subdivision. It was originally approved with a 53-acre development with 117 single-family lots. This phase of Augusta Greens would consist of 25 lots. It'll have a $2,250 per lot annexation fee and a $867 per lot parkland fee. This is the overall final plat, that'll just be north of the existing development there. And staff, including the planning and public works departments, are recommending approval of the final plat for Augusta Greens second edition.
All right. Any comments or questions from the committee? From the council? Public? Oh, Ross, go ahead.
Are we connecting sidewalk, bike path?
So they're actually paying, and I should have probably included this, they paid an initial fee because what we didn't want to do is put a sidewalk along Old Collinsville with the road the way that it was. So when we go back and rebuild Old Collinsville, they've paid the amount of money for the sidewalk. But all the internal streets will have the sidewalks.
All right. Any further comments? All right. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the committee? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Campbell.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
Small here.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
All right, so that'll move on to City Council for first reading on March 18th.
All right. 2.2, ordinance annexing certain territory containing approximately 1.8 acres.
Yeah, so this is an annexation request by the owners of 8506 East US Highway 50. This is a 1.8 acre site right next to the Bellow Heating and Cooling site out on East Highway 50. It is Zone B2 in St. Clair County. Upon its annexation, it will also be Zone B2 within the city of O'Fallon. And what Bellow is looking to do is basically build a sister building right next to this location. The access will come off of their existing parking lot and kind of have a joint access through there. What you're seeing on the aerial there, Christ Brothers has purchased some additional ground. They actually have sold this 1.8 acres to the Bellow family. They put in a access for property that they own about 88 acres, sort of just to the south of this site. So that's what you're seeing with that. And then their long-term plan is to develop that into some heavy commercial, light industrials type uses, with this serving as the primary access between this new building and the Sunbelt rental that sits there. So staff is recommending approval of the annexation at 8506 East US Highway 50.
All right. Any further questions or comments from the committee?
Going to be kind of a long, skinny building, isn't it?
Yeah, if you look at their existing building, that's kind of the same setup that they've got there as well.
Council? Public? All right. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the committee? Roll call, please.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
Small here.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
So that'll again will move for first reading on March 18th.
All right. Next up, special event permit request for District Nights Concert Series.
Yeah, so the next three, we'll do individuals, but they're the downtown district events. The first one I've got for you tonight is the District Nights Concert Series. The dates have been selected as June 6th, July 11th, and August 1st. Again, same setup as last year. The one thing that they did talk with the downtown businesses in the downtown district, there was some concern the first year and maybe even that first and second event, the setup time was earlier at 11 a.m. They've as they kind of got into it, they realized they didn't need to close it that early. So working with those businesses, they've moved that to 2 p.m. So everything else is pretty much the same. And so this is sort of the map that was created by the downtown district along with our PD, Sarah with the Parks Department. So again, very similar to last year, except for moving that setup time to 2 p.m.
Now, I know at one point they had 2 different band stages. Are they just having one?
That's a good question. Oops, sorry, I'm going the wrong way here. Yes, I believe they've gone to just the one there at Lincoln and basically First Street.
Okay.
And I know some of the events last year had a car show, some of them didn't. They are going to do that again this year.
All right. Any further questions from the committee? From council? From the public? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the committee? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Vorse.
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
Smallhere.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yep.
All right, again, this will be a council approval on March 18th at 7 p.m.
All right, thank you. 2.4, special wow, easy for you to say. Special event permit request for the Witches and Wizards Festival.
Very good. So Witches and Wizard, again, this one we've seen numerous times. They have changed a little bit of the location. It used to kind of span across both First Street, closed down Lincoln. They are now just closing down the, I guess that's the eastern block of First Street and the bus lane. It should help with pedestrians not having to cross and closing off Lincoln. So really that's the only change in this particular event, but we wanted to bring it back so that you guys at least saw that there was a change to the road closures. And sorry, that is on October 5th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
And just curious, did they see less attendance? Is that why they wanted to shrink it down?
Is that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yes, so if you remember this last year, the weather was quite awful. And that, in addition to increased ticket prices, they saw lower attendance this past year.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the committee?
It'll be kind of busy downtown that day.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the, we've had a market the same morning as all the Witches and Wizards before.
All right, anything from the council? Yes, sir.
Are they going to have an entrance fee like they did?
Yes, this will be an entrance fee, a ticket required for Wizards and Witches.
All right, any additional questions from the council? Public? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the committee? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Parchman.
Yes.
Smallhere.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Vorse.
Yes.
All right. We'll see that one on the next council meeting as well?
That will be on March 18th as well.
Great. All right, next up, 2.5, special event permit request for Vine Street Thanksgiving Market.
Yeah, so this is the second year you've seen this one. If nothing changes out of this year, this will be the last time outside of we'll let the council know about it, but this will be the second year. It's Saturday, November 23rd from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Band, vendors at the Vine Street Market, Casa Maria Food Truck, the Crooked Creek Winery will be offering tastings, and Gears will have alcohol for sale. This year they are closing a little bit of just around the station. So again, less impactful than what was originally approved before. So any questions of staff on that one?
Questions from the council? Public? Yes, Russ.
Yes, thank you. And so they do have a turnaround point here as well. I believe this was a new configuration after Councilmember Foney asked about dangers of crossing the street. We did it a few markets last year and it worked pretty well. We always do have assistance on hand to help people turn around when need be. I say we, I mean volunteers. I'm not out there.
You're not going to be out there flagging?
I will.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get you.
I'm usually purchasing.
Okay, all right. Any additional comments from the public? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the committee? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Vorse.
Yes.
Parchman.
Yes.
Small here.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Albert.
Yep.
All right, that also will follow track to March 18th at 7 p.m.
All right, and 2.6, 2.7, those are second readings, no changes there?
Correct, yeah, so Pinch, nothing has changed in that location and project, and same with Calvary Church, there's no changes to that.
Okay. Did the committee have any questions, follow up for that? Yes.
Do we have any projects in mind to auto park to drive? It's falling apart.
Yeah, I know Jeff has identified that as an area. I'm not I can get back with you, but I know he knows auto cart was needing some care.
I think it was originally developed by the auto cart people.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
road.
Yep.
It wasn't a public road, basically.
There was a lot of discussion on that. I know Jeff was looking into it, but we've deemed that it is a public access.
Needs it.
All right, any further questions on 2.6 or 2.7? All right.
Those will both be on for second reading on March 18th.
All right, other business 3.1, West O'Fallon Action Plan.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Grant kick this presentation off, and then I'll jump in and we'll try to answer any of your guys' questions.
I knew there was a reason we had you up.
You have to live with me now. Yes, the West O'Fallon Action Plan. So this is something we've actually been working on for a while. While it has been an idea for some time, the name is new. So if you have any other comments about calling it the WOAP, we will take suggestions. But that's the best we can come up with at the time. So just to step back and take a very high view. So West O'Fallon, here, can you move us in? So West O'Fallon, as we identified, you know, it's not technically all of West O'Fallon, but we're looking at the area typically we know as Ward 5. In the National Citizen Survey, we do some geographic, some geographic tabulations, and so this is one area that we're able to divide because it's so cleanly separated by Interstate 64. It's also got some opportunities and challenges. You know, it includes a large part of our sales tax base, large population, and also if you look at the areas not shaded in the south and in the west, there are areas that have Shiloh and Swansea and almost to Fairview Heights. So when you get down to that part, there is a lack of potential community identity, which we'll talk about in a second here. And so going back to the citizen survey, which we do every 2 years, but as long as I've been here now for 12 years, this area has always and consistently had lower ratings by the residents as a place to live, sense of community and community pride, parks and recreation opportunities, library education and arts opportunities, cleanliness and code enforcement, and residential growth. One of the things that's concerning to us is also, there's a question to ask the residents, how willing how likely are you to stay in this area for the next 5 years or stay in O'Fallon? And this area has the lowest scores of those 5.
So, while that crashed, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, good timing.
So, I know from the survey we have that. Do we have any actual data that we have from a water service or, well, I guess they would have been Caseyville?
That's another challenge you have over there. A lot of that is Caseyville Sewer District.
I was just curious if we had any actual data on how often people are moving
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we can pull the records on water service change, but I can tell you by a good guess that that's probably our largest turnover area, given that a lot of it is either trailer parks or modular housing or a lot of rentals.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, we're back.
Good filler.
So, despite some of the lower scores, and while I say lower, I don't mean they're abysmal. I mean, they're close to being on par, but they are the lowest of the 5 areas that we look at. Recently, we've had some wins and some losses. Obviously, the St. Clair Auto Mall moved out a few years ago, and we took a large hit. But as you guys saw tonight on second reading, Pinch is moving back into there. We've got some other leads that Justin's been working on diligently. We've also got some redevelopment and infill, including Hawaiian Brothers, the barn, some nice residential facilities like the Lake St. Ellen Villas, Autumn Pine Townhomes. Working on a potential redevelopment of the RP Lumber site. And of course, we also, in addition to development, we're very active in that area, and the police department does a lot of pop-up barbecues along with the fire department and EMS. So we are engaging this area. Of course, we talked earlier, they also have a separate school district in the other part of O'Fallon. So building that community identity and reminding that area that it is O'Fallon and making them feel like it's all one town is important to us. So the action plan, we started it kind of covertly about a year ago with some gateway signs at Old Collinsville Road to kind of remind people as they're driving out of Fairview that you're entering the great city of O'Fallon again. We're also working with the police department to create to install some license plate readers in important intersections. Kirk has reached out to his counterparts in Fairview Heights, and they're going to partner with us, which will really help us stretch our dollars. We mentioned, and I think we brought to the Parks Committee, Andrew's working on some plans for St. Ellen Mine Park and what that would look like in the short and long-term future. And then Justin's worked with his code enforcement and inspection division for some time now to identify hot spots and areas that we have very frequent code enforcement touches and to try to create plans to help that. And so the next kind of logical step is we've identified is to capture kind of some of the success we've had in the downtown area and the redevelopment of it. And then while it has been budgeted in this next year, and it was in the economic development budget presented by Sandy Evans a couple weeks ago, we still wanted to reach out to you and explain the plan before we spend any money on it or anything. So I'll turn it over to Justin to talk about the specifics.
Yeah, so as Grant mentioned, we've seen a really positive outcomes from the downtown facade program. It's actually one of the things I'm most proud of what I've accomplished while being here. And so we're trying to leverage that success that happens as a part of that redevelopment of our downtown and move it into a different location. And so we've done a ton of research trying to look at what it would take to create a residential facade program. And so normally these types of programs are funded through CBDG funds. So that's Community Development Block Grants. And those are federal grants that come into communities. Unfortunately, and fortunately, we don't qualify for those grants due to our levels of income. We have a couple wards that are getting close, and census blocks is what they call them, not typically your wards, but these census blocks are generally in this western area that are getting close to those CBDG funds. We reached out to the county. They administer some of those types of programs for East St. Louis, Belleville, and other communities that are eligible. And they told us, hey, you're better off just creating your own, because then you're not tied to all the federal requirements for these types of grants. And so Walter was talking with Decatur. They've got a really aggressive program with this. Granite City has a residential facade program that we pulled some of their stuff out. So we've been able to kind of mix and match some of the better programs around the state to kind of develop our own type of program. And so obviously with the residential facade program, we're talking about people that are homeowners, right? So we're targeting ownership. Most of what we've found in these is that the grant needs to be a high matching grant. So the city puts in a higher percentage than what the homeowner does because they're struggling to meet the basic needs of their family, and then to expect them to pay 50% of a $10,000 facade improvement just isn't very likely. So what we've come up with is a matching grant. The max out-of-pocket that the city would have per grant would be $9,000. If the homeowner's going to do a $10,000 project, we'd cover 90%. Homeowner would cover 10%. Obviously, that would be the max type of project. If somebody's got a $5,000 project, we would cover 90%. They would cover 10%. Things that are eligible: painting, new siding, gutters, updates to porches, windows, doors, creating kind of like covered awnings or replacing those, updating their lighting, permanent landscaping, so things that, enhance that curb appeal, that provide return value on the home. And so those are most of the eligible costs. Again, all outside eligible improvements. There are some that have interior things that are eligible, but for our first kind of pilot program, we thought exterior made the most sense. Roofs can be part of that, but there's some criteria where the insurance has to deny a claim on the roof, and it does need replaced. So those are some of the eligible improvements. So then it's kind of like, okay, who's eligible? And so we identified this west end as part of the overall project area, but then we used some of the neighborhood matrix information that we got after the master plan. We had that neighborhood matrix that looked at the condition of houses and the areas around the houses. And we were able to overlay those houses with moderate to poor responses back from that matrix. We were able to put on a layer of where our highest code enforcement activities were. We were able to then come up with these areas kind of highlighted as areas that would be eligible. You must own and occupy the house, so you have to provide your tax statements, you have to provide utility bills indicating that you actually live there, not just own the property. One of the things also, just to continue to try to keep home ownership in this area, is that we're asking them that they have to reside in that location for 3 more years. After that, so how we would do that is we put a lien on the property with whatever we had in terms of the matching grant. That would be a lien on the property. If they live there for 3 years after the project's completed, we would release that lien. If they, for some reason, had to move out of the area, maybe they were military or whatever, then that would just be a lien. That lien would be paid off when the house sells. So we would have that ability to recollect those liens. And then what's not eligible, and what you saw, we removed a lot of the manufactured housing areas, even though they have some code enforcement and some conditioning things. We took them out because those can be moved out of our community without us really even knowing. So didn't feel like it was worth the investment if it's able to be moved. And then again, they have to be up on their taxes. They can't have any liens or past due stuff due to the city. And again, obviously, if it's for sale or rent, those types of homes would not be eligible. So that's sort of in a quick nutshell, the facade program, if you have questions, we've got an opportunity to ask those. But after that, we also want to extend the commercial facade program. This is basically stripping the word downtown district off of the current project and pushing this into the West O'Fallon area. Again, matching grant, 50% of the cost up to $15,000. Building owners and businesses responsible for all the cost above that matching grant number. Improvements to, the eligible improvements include improvements to architectural detail, providing appropriately scaled and designed windows and doors, decorative lightings, awnings, canopies, shutters if that's appropriate, and potential upgrades to signage. Some very, very much the same design guidelines that are in the commercial design handbook would be what we would expect them to do. Not necessarily always the downtown design handbook, but more our commercial, since this is out on Highway 50 and Central Park areas. So with that, Grant and I are here to answer any questions and kind of, we'll start with questions and then give you a little bit of the next steps if you'd like. I know that's a lot, but I think it's a important piece of trying to support a neighborhood that could use some support.
Yeah, and just to add some context on how, if this program launches and we get a lot of submissions, how the recipients will be chosen. So in the downtown commercial facade program, everybody enters, it's scored, and then there's a judge panel that looks at them and scores them again and then presents to staff what their selections are. That process will stay for the commercial side, and they evaluate, impact on the community, need, those kind of things, those judgmental pieces. This isn't in a plan to, assist a $15 million renovation of Walmart by giving them $10,000 on a facade. This is to try to grab the smaller businesses that maybe are really, they're close to wanting to do stuff year-round. Justin and his staff and I walk around and we'll try to identify people in downtown and say, there's this program. Have you ever thought about redoing your facade? We have a few still on our list that we're still going to try to get, but that's been a wildly successful program. On the residential side, we did not want it to be a judging panel that people's homes were kind of put into front of a group and, we like that one, not that one. So they're scored more or less pass, fail criteria, and they would be then selected nearly at random instead of being judged by a panel.
And the budget for both of those is what, $50,000 each?
$50,000 proposed for each in this next fiscal year.
Yeah, and that ties into one of my questions. So the downtown facade program obviously comes from the TIF. There's no TIFs for the residential, and I don't think a TIF for the West End commercial either. Where would the money be coming from?
So these funds are budgeted in our Fund 51, which is our Economic Development Fund, which is revenue from hotel motel tax and interest.
Ross?
Who is on the random selection?
Sure. So for the residential selection, staff will evaluate them, pass or fail. Of course, we'll report back to the council who the ones that are we'll take, here's the amount of dollars, here's the first selected, does it meet? And if it does, then you take that off of the top, 50 grand, you go until you run out of money. Now the commercial program, and I'm not trying to avoid the question, but we do try to keep that a little bit as a secret so that we don't have businesses tracking down those people. And I think there's 6 of them, and they're all people I'm surprised if somebody hasn't told somebody sooner or later. But we try to keep that kind of secret so nobody's approaching them year round saying, hey, what do you really like to see on these?
I'm not asking who they are.
Yeah.
Are they community leaders?
Yes.
Are they
You would know every one of them.
And they typically have some knowledge of construction details to construction and commercial and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they have one engineer, one architect, one history buff, got quite a great group.
Yes.
I just have a quick follow-up question. I know we've talked about this a little bit, I've talked about it with Walter. The only concern I have with it is homeownership is a responsibility. You can have 3 people that live in a row, maybe the same amount of income, and one will have a new iPhone, will have new, a home is, where's your priority? So how are you gonna weight that to ensure that it doesn't look arbitrary how it's being awarded out? Because the first, you know what I'm saying? How deep are you gonna go into the
Sure.
finance?
Yeah, so, a few thoughts. We can't walk in and make sure everybody doesn't have a new iPhone or PlayStation and brand new TVs and their gutters are falling off. So when we look at facade programs, it's not so much as providing a benefit to that person that owns a house, it's also the benefit of those living around it. Light spreads as much success and growth does, and so I think we've seen in the presidential streets a significant investment in the infrastructure and in the presidential streets over the last 10 years. I mean, we're over probably $10 million, and we've seen, exponential growth in reinvestment in the community. So unfortunately, there's not questions on, really, we don't want to look at their bank statements or look at their income. Those are some of the criteria if we were to use CBDG funds. But we're kind of more focused on the outside appeal of the building or the residential facade and how it affects the community as a whole or the nearby residents.
So how do you weight that though? Do you have an application that's been vetted, so
We will.
it's standardized?
Yep. And we have a portion in there. I mean, if the house and the homeowner, if Justin's got them in code enforcement action in front of a judge every week, they're not going to get a residential facade program to put new windows in because we know that they don't have smoke detectors or they don't even have an occupancy permit. Right. And so those are the things we'll vet as a staff through the application process.
And that's, I think, the important thing also too, and Grant kind of hit on it. I mean, these homes are here for a very long time. And so if you can get people to put a little bit into it and then the city help them out with that, that improvement now lasts for another 20, 30 years. And hopefully what you see over time is those little incremental improvements continue to make those neighborhoods better. We've seen it with the downtown facade too, is like, well, they did it and now their building looks good. Mine doesn't look as nice, so I need to now, and so that's the hope with this, is to see some of the response that we got with the downtown district, and continue to build incrementally this neighborhood back up.
And if there's something I can add to this real quick, in the housing study that was done a year ago, there was an interesting data point in there where they said the smaller and less expensive houses, they said, were the least affordable because the people who live there had a larger percentage of their annual income goes into housing costs than in our larger homes, which means that the people who are living in those homes do not have as much discretionary income to take care of their homes as people who live in larger homes, which seems counterintuitive because they are our less expensive homes, but it takes up more of their monthly income to be able to afford to live there. So that's one of the things that this would help with.
If this plan works out, and you have a limited amount of budget on this, right? If it works out here, are you going to try to expand it in that area?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I mean, we've seen it work in the downtown area. Obviously, we always ask ourselves what's next. And so I'd love to do it in everywhere in town as needed. I mean, a match like this would be hard for a huge renovation, and we wouldn't do swimming pools and that kind of stuff. But yes, there is an opportunity to expand in the future.
And Walter and I talked about, do you just open this up to the entire community, right? But what I pushed back on opening it up everywhere is, I think like with the downtown, it's a very small area, and so you begin to see the investment that's put in. And so again, it's kind of keeping up with the Joneses a little bit, trying to, hey, they did that this year. So if you can get 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 in a kind of a neighborhood, you really start to see people just doing it themselves. Like, I don't need the grant, so I'm going to make these improvements myself. And then once you kind of prop up that neighborhood, then you go and focus on, you know, a potentially other neighborhood that could use that assistance.
Like in Ward 3, this would be a good program to go through, because a lot of these are lesser value homes, and people are like, it would work.
Yeah.
We just want to do this as a pilot.
It's the oldest housing stock areas, right? I mean, so old houses, they take a lot of upkeep. It's tough, and so, yeah, I would certainly, if this becomes successful, I would love to keep pushing this into other neighborhoods.
So Justin, on that point, how are you going to grade success?
In my opinion, I think if you can spend the $50,000 that we get in this year's budget and you make an incremental improvement to 5 or 6 houses, that's the first step in success. And then if you guys feel comfortable, like, hey, look at what we've been able to accomplish, right? We send out, we do a write-up for all the downtown improvements that were done with the district. So write up something that just at least shows, like, hey, this was before, this was after, and make sure that everybody's comfortable with the changes that are happening in this neighborhood. And if you are, then we do this again next year.
And I guess I appreciate that, and I do see that, you know, having better facades in and of itself is good, but what we're talking about is a sense of community, making, you know, folks have, you know, better feeling about the neighborhoods and O'Fallon. How are we going to grade that just the facade program itself is helping impact that?
I think you could do, and we haven't gotten into this quite as far along, but I think you could do a couple things, right? You could take a base inventory of what the houses are being sold in that area and see over time if they continue to go up during this. If our code enforcement complaints go down, I think is another really good key cog in what we're trying to do with this. So I think if you can get a couple of those types of
maybe even baseline police calls, things of that nature.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we could create a whole matrix to come up with identifying how you know, we're getting positive results out of it.
Yeah, and just in my mind, I mean, yes, I like the improvement of the facade, but I want there to be real value from the city standpoint, whether that's less police calls, less code enforcement, bettering, you know, tangible things besides just making the homes look better.
And I think, and home ownership, watching how home ownership changes, if it does in this area, I think would be another positive matrix to look at.
And I'll remind you, so the facade program is what we're talking about today, but it's one part in the larger project that includes a strong arm, and I don't want to say strong arm, but a strong component in public safety, increasing amenities in parks, walking and biking trails. I mean, it truly is to try to make O'Fallon feel connected. The interstate's great for a lot of things. But what it's not great for is keeping a community together through, you know, shared access. And so part of a facade program, as Justin alluded to, you know, you see 3 or 4 people on your block and the word gets out, yeah, this is the City of O'Fallon's projects, and maybe we'll put a sign out front. You have to keep it up for like 30 years and says City of O'Fallon. But
that's against sign code, just so everybody knows. So we're not doing that.
I mean, 2 of the most popular questions I get in my job is this O'Fallon, Illinois, or Missouri, and where does O'Fallon and Fairview and Shiloh start and stop? Sure. And so that's part of why we do gateway signs. But it's also part of why we want the residents of those areas to know where they live and feel like they're part of O'Fallon.
Yeah, and again, I think we have to look at it holistically with all the things, and I think, if it all works, great. I was referring to when you're talking about expanding the program to other areas where we don't have these same concerns, how are we going to grade that it's worth moving it to those other areas?
Right.
Yeah, we can work on that as kind of a next step for the council to kind of see how we would feel comfortable evaluating the program.
And then one other question, like with the license plate readers, how does that connect? Is that just working to lower potential crime in the area? Is that what the hope is?
I'll relay the question to Chief Brigham, but it's pretty cool technology. But
Oh, yeah, it's a force multiplier for us. I mean, everyone knows that the west end of O'Fallon is our retail center and our retail hub, and that's where the majority of our crimes are committed. So in having that along, trying to just shore up that area right there at 50 and Old Collinsville Road, people coming to and from Fairview Heights. Fairview Heights is very interested in it. We're interested in it for when we have those crimes, leaving Walmart, leaving Home Depot, leaving Sam's Club, because not everybody gets on the interstate and goes the other way. Sometimes they come into Fairview. That's what happened when we had the Academy Sports. So it's just assist us when we have those crimes and in trying to catch those criminals, so that way we keep that West End as safe as possible.
And I'm 100% for it. I mean, put them wherever you want. I was just, in terms of tying it to what we're talking about here with the community, I'm assuming the reason it's tied is maybe that sense of crimes that are committed
Just
in this
safety,
area.
yeah. Safety, if we have violent crimes or even property crimes in that area, just making it, because it's not only residential, it's making people want to come into there and spend their money and feel safe shopping and feel safe, going to those stores on that west end of town.
Awesome, thank you. All right, any other questions before I've already taken up my allotted amount of time? Anybody else?
So did I miss the part where we talked about the next steps, or that, like, what happens now? Are you putting up?
Yeah, so once the budget's approved, then we've got draft applications and stuff like that. So once, if the council moves forward with our proposal in the budget, then we would begin, just like what we do with the downtown, we open up a window of time to get the applications out. Obviously, this is a new area, so I think there's gonna have to be some more than just putting it out, right? You're gonna need to go and talk to folks, and we've already begun some of that, especially on the commercial side. But yeah, just making sure people are aware of the opportunity, getting that information out, and then, run it basically like our downtown, where there's a window of application, provide them with information on people that they can, utilize to help them through that process, contacting contractors to make sure they're on board with some of the residential stuff that we're looking for. So yeah, I mean, there's a laundry list of things. I would not expect the application to come out like May 2nd, and we're putting this out. There's quite a bit of behind the scenes.
And in the immediate term, now that we've presented this, we'll send out the guidelines and what we've put together in draft form to the council to review. And please, if you have ideas, let us know. I mean, you see your residents more than we do, and help us craft this policy before we full launch.
Ross, did you have a question?
Yeah, it just dawned on me, is there any intention to have a requirement for who does the work?
Yes.
So, like, I mean, if it's my home, I can hire my brother and it's a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, we've got some qualifying criteria for contractors built in.
Yeah, we've got the commercial facade program pretty well tuned with bidding procedures and qualified contractors. It gets a little bit more difficult because, of course, everyone's going to say, well, I can do the job cheaper than they can, which helps us having a building and inspection division to keep everybody making sure it's done quality work.
Yeah, they'll all have to pull permits and stuff like that, so.
Have you talked to some of the businesses out there about, we're talking about different qualities of work and everything like that, whether they could get a discount program?
I think that's a great idea. We'll do that tomorrow. Mhm.
Some of our,
Yeah.
Jessica, did you?
I don't have a comment on the policy itself, but the context leading up to it, you mentioned some wins, and I just want to point out that Habitat for Humanity should be listed in that, because they've done an amazing job getting those houses in that area on Booster Road enhanced and
That was
elevated.
Grant Slide. I'll just make that.
Noted.
But did you
yeah.
did you see the one with me and Justin at Hawaiian Bros?
Yeah.
Going like that?
Anyway,
Yes, Habitat is a model of
Yes.
success we have there. And I know that's a well-organized group, but it's kind of grassroots action that we would like to see in our community, throughout our community, of course. And if they want to take about 10 more houses, Jim, we're good to go.
Put 5 more.
Five more, yeah, okay. All right.
All right, I know you're going to work on more details, and we can hash those out later, but I think for the concept, this is what the concept would be, and then
Yeah.
we'll get the details and.
Yeah, it's in the budget as proposed, and so, I mean, we would like to, not asking, there's no vote or anything, but if it's an idea that you like, we would like to hear that and see it move forward.
All right, any additional comments? Anybody from the public? All right, then we'll move on. The last item up is our community development report. Any questions from the committee on that, or?
Yeah,
anything you
so
wanna highlight?
it's attached. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. But other than that, next, yeah.
All right, so any additional questions on the report from the committee, council? All right. Hearing none, we'll move into public comment. So this is public comment. Anybody from the public that would like to address the Community Development Committee? Roy, are you going to the bathroom, or you want to address? Okay. All right, hearing none online, great, none online? Okay, all right, then I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Public safety at 7:08.
All right, we'll call the public safety meeting to order. Can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Forrest?
Here.
Councilmember Van Hook?
Here.
Councilmember Lotz?
Here.
Councilmember Rosenberg?
Present.
Councilmember Foney?
Here.
All right, we have the minutes from our last meeting. Can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes approved. Can we get an update on Jujubee? Are we
She's doing wonderful.
doing well? Okay, all right.
She's doing
good.
wonderful.
Okay.
We're working on some barking issues, but other than that, she's
Well,
doing really well. Took her on a 2-mile walk today.
That's what dogs do.
Yep, she did a good job. She had a couple teeth pulled last week.
Wow.
Don't ask me why a 2.5-year-old dog needs a couple teeth pulled, but we're getting her working on.
Okay.
She's doing well.
Fair enough. How about 2.1?
2.1 is, so MetaClaims is the company that we use to do all of our billing and collections for EMS. We previously had, or we're in the last year of a 5-year contract with MetaClaims that ends April 14th. So what we are proposing is another 5-year contract with MetaClaims at the same rates, which is 5.75% of everything they collect. And then they also pay for our Code Red software, which is it's $9,695 is how much they pay for that. We're recommending staying with the same company. We have a track record with them. It has been very, very good for us. They're extremely easy to work with, and the rates are very, very good for what we look at when we're trying to, collect and do all the billing. So. That's, I'd open it up if anybody has any questions
You're
about
talking about 3.1 instead of 2.1, correct?
No, 2.1 is the resolution for MetaClaims.
No. Dispatch services.
I guess I am looking.
If somebody signed in, I think somebody just pulled it.
Oh, that's what, mine's different. Did somebody pull
Well,
it?
it's a resolution. It needs to go under items for council action. There you go.
There it is. Flip it up next.
Leah can do it.
There we go. We're at 2.1, MetaClaims.
That's not for the public. No. You guys can't do that.
Is that what was printed out, 2.1 though?
I vote for it.
I don't know, I was just, that's just what the agenda that was posted said,
Any
but.
questions about 2.1, MetaClaims? All right.
All right, it's a resolution, so we need a roll call? Or, I'm sorry, can I get a motion and a second, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Council? All right, roll call, please.
Forrest?
Yes.
Van Hook?
Yes.
Lotz?
Yes.
Rosenberg?
Affirmative.
Foney?
Yes.
All right, the other one now.
2.2, this is something we do every year. It is a communication services contract renewal between the City of O'Fallon and the Village of Shiloh for dispatch services. The only changes this year is a small increase. I believe we were at 165 last year. This year it would be 172,500. That's money we're collecting to do the dispatching for the Shiloh Police Department. There is one other item in there, which is number 9. And this is something that came from our insurance, actually their insurance company recommended they are required to carry insurance on us, and then their insurance company, who happens to be the exact same insurance company as us, which is RMA, which is through the IML, wanted us to have an insurance policy covering them. So we have dueling insurance policies covering each other. No extra cost to the city, but it was recommended by the insurance carrier who represents us both. So that's the only update.
All right, can we get a motion for that one?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Council?
Yes, this is, so we dispatch for Shiloh. Shiloh pays us. With Fairview Heights, we're a partnership, and that was set into play back in 2016. So we don't actually renew anything with Fairview Heights on a year-to-year basis. Yeah, that's a partnership where this year they'll actually pay 46%, and we're at 54%.
All right, public? We don't- Okay. Can we get a roll? I'm sorry? Yeah, roll call, yes.
Vorst,
Yes?
Van Hook,
Yes.
Lotz.
Yes.
Rosenberg,
Affirmative.
Foney.
Yes.
All right, on to the budget.
Fires first. Sharing.
Says share. New share. I had to click new share.
There we go.
All right, the fire's budget's pretty much the same as it is year to year, so not a whole lot of changes, so we'll just run through it real quick. Get the next slide there. So our revenue, again, is just our taxes. There's a few miscellaneous amounts we bring in from some, the ordinance we had adopted allowing us to bill at-fault non-resident driver from accidents and stuff. That brings us in somewhere between 25 and 35,000 a year. So that is up into that miscellaneous piece. I'll let them get this fixed here for a second. There you go. All right. So you can see our total budget again, just a little over $2 million. It's not a real big change. Expense-wise is again about the same. The biggest piece is our personnel. That'll be just over $900,000, which includes the full-time, part-time, and our paid-on calls. Again, we ended 2023 the most number of calls, but at the largest our department's been. We're right around 60 people again. So we continue to grow. We actually had some more walk-ins this week already, or last week. So we've got a good recruiting and retention program going right now. So I think we'll be able to maintain and just continue to do that as we're staffed. So not a lot of big changes. The other big piece for us is our maintenance. That's through the trucks, the equipment, and the stations. Eats up a big chunk of change. Unfortunately, everything fire comes with 3 times the cost for everything else. So, you know, it costs a fortune to maintain all the annual requirements for annual inspections and stuff like that. So those are the 2 biggest expenses out there for us. Next slide. Saying all that, we still were able to put away $220,000 into our capital reserves. We did pass on the purchase of that new engine last year. I didn't feel it was right to spend $1 million on a truck that's not really worth that much. But we're earmarking the amount we're putting back into the reserves, knowing we're going to have to replace an engine or more likely that 45-foot heavy rescue in a couple of years. So we're going to start putting away some of the money and start looking at how we can, you know, get to the cheapest cost with what we need to best serve the city. We do have coming in the 25 budget, the $148,000. So that's the 2 SUVs. One was actually approved for the 2024 budget. That was ordered in late November, so it won't actually get here probably until the 25 budget hits. And at the same time, we went ahead and made the purchase for the 25 vehicle, knowing it would also take 6 to 9 months to get it somewhere in that 25 budget year. So that's what those 2 vehicles are. That'll replace the SUV I'm driving now with a little over 110,000 miles and the deputy's vehicle with about 100,000 miles. Both of those will be up to the city if we sell them or float them back into the city's vehicle maintenance lot somewhere for other departments to use. And then we'll have one SUV a couple years from now that'll be due as well. So again, trying to get the most bang for our buck. We're actually changing now. We have always had Fords. We went with the Chevy Tahoes on these 2 vehicles just to save about $15,000 per vehicle. So again, just trying to squeeze every dollar we can from where we can. So no big changes. Unless you guys have questions on our side, it's pretty straightforward.
Council?
All right, EMS. Just a few little stats from 2023. We were 2.8% increase in calls for service last year, almost a 5% increase in the number of people that we actually transported. And then you just show some things on mutual aid calls. Went up a little bit in what we provided and what we received. So we are fully staffed at 18 full-time paramedics/EMTs, and then we have 3 supervisors and then a business director. So that's really what takes up the majority of what we're doing, for personnel-wise. But I think we're in a really good spot. We've been fully staffed here now for probably about a month and a half or a couple months where we've finally had our 18. So they're running 3 ambulances on every day that we can, that not a lot of people take off or call in sick or have vacations. So some bigger purchases that we have for EMS this year is we are purchasing a QRV. We've already ordered that. It should be here in FY25. So that's going to act as a recovery vehicle as well. So when we have we had one of our ambulances that we've kept that we can take out to different fire scenes and do recovery for our firefighters. It's not called recovery though. What is it?
No, it's a rehab vehicle.
Rehab vehicle. So now we've got a pickup truck that's going to have all that equipment in the back, and that way we can get there a lot quicker. So while the QRV is out, while that pickup truck is out, one of our paramedics can bring it right out instead of having to drive back to the station, get the rehab ambulance, and then bring it back. So it'll already be out on the road. We did order an ambulance, but that's not going to be really delivered until FY26. So, just like Brad said, everything is super expensive and takes a long time to get. Some of our bigger equipment purchases this year, we bought a Zoll X Series advanced cardiac monitor because we did not have one on a 4th truck, so we needed to have that, and we're going to start replacing those things out. Those things are pretty expensive, but very important. And then we also purchased, we're going to purchase 3 of these Stryker Expedition stair chairs. So right now, these are stair chairs. The stair chairs that we have, they have to manually push and pull them upstairs. If you can imagine having somebody on there that's several hundred pounds trying to get up and down stairs, these Expedition stair chairs are automatic, so they can get a little help from the batteries in there. So I think they're worth their weight in gold as far as trying to eliminate some of these potential work comp claims when you've got to move people up and down stairs. Our operating supplies and professional services are going to continue to go up because we're running more calls. So we need more supplies to run the calls and professional services. So when we bring in more money from Mediclaims, we're going to have to pay them more money, 5.75%, obviously. And then we continue to do our community outreach. We'll be doing an EMS open house this year. We did not have that last year. First aid, CPR classes continue to be our priority for us to connect with the community. Next slide. Any questions on EMS before we go to MECOM?
First aid and CPR, do we offer that for like babysitters, kids?
There is a program for babysitters. I don't think we do the babysitters, but we do offer first aid and CPR.
Yeah,
I'd have to check on that.
They have kids come through it, but they don't have there's a program specifically for babysitters.
There was an actual program through Memorial Hospital years ago, like a babysitter's class that taught you CPR, and that was through the hospitals. I'd have to check, but I mean, we do CPR for kids, but we don't have any like babysitter actual certifications. I'd have to check into that though.
Any other comments, questions? Okay.
All right, MECOM. So one of the things that we are adding this year is a 14th full-time telecommunicator. That is an additional full-time telecommunicator. If you remember when we started this back in 2016, we started with 12. We added one about 4 or 5 years ago, and we've just been doing the analysis on what we need to keep that staffing level and to keep those overtime rates down. And we did a staff study, and the recommendation was for a 14th full-time telecommunicator. So right now we're sitting at 13. So once we get this, we'd love to get them on board and then hire additional part-timers. other than that, there's not a whole lot of difference in the MECOM budget. I'm always looking for additional training opportunities for our TCs. We do our community outreach. The one change this year is that the cost ratio between us and Fairview Heights, last year it was 47%, 53%. So we paid 53%. Fairview Heights paid 47%. This year, due to call volume, for what we handle in O'Fallon, the O'Fallon Police versus the Fairview Heights Police, we're actually growing where they're not growing quite as quick. So it's going to be a 54-46. So we're actually going to have to take on an additional percentage of the cost for O'Fallon. So you see, they are increasing. 99,000 calls for service last year, an increase of 5.5%. 26,000 911 calls, an increase of 6.7%, and they average 258 calls for service per day. So they remain very busy in that comm center every day, and it's staffed anywhere between 2 and 4 people, sometimes 5, depending on if we have some training. So, any questions about MECOM?
The percentage with Fairview, is that based on population or?
No, there's a matrix that we use that was created when we first did, when Chief Van Hook and Chief Galius, when we first did the consolidation, where what we do every year is we take a snapshot of our call volume from November to November of the year before, and then we scrub out some of the items, like we scrub out we wanted to compare apples to apples because we didn't always track the same types of calls. So we're in O'Fallon, we're tracking school activities and business checks. They're not necessarily doing that as much. But what Fairview does is every day self-populates. They do a lot of house checks for vacations, and they were self-populating those. So those things would pile up on their end where ours would pile up on our other end. So we came up with a formula where we scrubbed out certain things and then just looked at call volume in general, and then took those percentages. And we do that every November, and we sit down with the leadership over at Fairview Heights Police Department. We go through it, take a look at it, and we come to an agreement on it, and that's where we sit and stand.
Any other comments or questions on MECOM? All right, on to the police.
Police, so not a whole lot of changes. I think the biggest changes, we are fully staffed at 50 officers. Well, I say we're at 49 right now, but we have one that is in the pipeline. Hopefully will be hired within the next couple weeks, going through some pre-employment processes. And we are looking to get a temporary 51st in with the retirement of Officer Dukart in August to try to stay ahead of the curve there. I did put in an increase in overtime to complete, because we are having to get some of this unfunded mandated training. So our officers have to have so many hours of scenario-based role play training, within 3 years, and it's broken out into the alphabet, so a third of them, and a third of them. So we're getting to those points where we have to get these officers these trainings. So one of these things is we need to get our officers together. We need to get them and have this mandated training, so that way we can stay on top of things, and then we can really train as a team too, so we can get some of this really important training, some of the active shooter training, get everybody on the same page. So I got together with my command staff, and we discussed we're going to need to just have some overtime for some of this training, because it needs to be done to get everybody on the same page. Officer wellness, we're always committed to officer wellness. The comfort dog's on there. It doesn't actually cost a whole lot of money. Realistically, we've been very fortunate. We're getting a lot of things donated, and with the teeth free. Shiloh Veterinary was very wonderful that they've donated all of the veterinary stuff, veterinary visits so far. So just a commitment that we have to officer wellness, peer support team and everything like that. Equipment, we do have the booking cells cameras are getting upgraded this year. We've been in there for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in October that our building's been there. So we've had some new cameras put in, but this particular upgrade is going to require us to get in there and change out all the wiring. So that way we can get some good high quality cameras in our booking area. Community outreach, community engagement maintains a large portion of us. Papa Barbecue's 19 night. Doesn't cost us a whole lot, but it's something that's very important to us. And then I think realistically, some of the bigger things is vehicles. We're going to replace 3 patrol vehicles this year, 2 CID administrative vehicles, and then we are going to use restricted funds for one of the patrol vehicles. We have DUI funds that we're able to do, so we're actually going to replace 4. There is a little bit of a change. There were 2 vehicles that were ordered in FY24, and they're coming in on May 6th. So we had to take the remaining $75,000 that we had in our vehicle budget from FY24, and we had to do a carryover into FY25. So there are a couple vehicles that we'll be purchasing out of money that we're carrying over from FY24 to FY25. So we continue to replace our frontline vehicles at right around 100,000 miles. We're seeing a lot of issues with those. They have a lot of, just a lot of wear and tear driving around the city. And then we do the same thing with our replacement of CID and administrative vehicles. We buy those used from the Kansas Highway Patrol, and now we're buying Durangos because they no longer do Chargers. So we're doing Durangos, and we try to get rid of those when they hit about 100,000 miles. When those hit about 100,000 miles, they're generally 5 to 6 years older than our patrol cars because they don't get driven as much. So I think that's it.
Police, okay.
That's it for police.
Any comments or questions for the police budget?
And then last is Board of Fire and Police Commissioners. This is a small budget, but this is they support our testing and hiring process, recruitment costs, and then we do have a promotional testing cycle in FY25. Every 3 years we test for sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. So some of that requires some money for testing materials in that process that goes on there. So that's all I got.
All right. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll open up for public comments. Anybody on? Craig Lotz. Yeah. All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thanks,
we are
Chief.
adjourned.